Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic? Let's do it. Skeptics beware. Stories that defy logic and baffle even the strongest doubters. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. My mom died of cancer, and during the final months she was living with us, and we took care of her until her last breath in our house. 4 events have happened that are not easy to explain. First, in her last week I was trying to help her relax, so I played a playlist I keep on my phone called Bedtime. It has some very relaxing music. Her breathing was getting louder, and it was difficult to be there with her. At one point I was crying because I was watching her this way. Her brother Leo had passed away before her, so I closed my eyes and thought, Leo, please take her. It's so hard for her, she's ready. 10 seconds later, she took her last breath. It wasn't until later the next day that we realized she passed away on the exact same day that Leo did 10 years later. About a week after she died, I was sitting on the couch and I thought to myself, Mom, if you're okay, give me a sign. My phone started playing that bedtime playlist all by itself. A few months later, we were moving out of that house. We had loaded the last box and I was doing my final walk through the house. In my head I said, Mom, we're going to a new house. I hope you're coming with us. And I shit you not, my phone started playing that playlist again. 2 weeks ago, we were in Cancun on vacation. It's been a couple years since she passed away. We were having a romantic dinner on the beach, and I knew my mom would have really enjoyed it where we were, so I thought, Mom, if you're still with me, give me a sign. And about 5 seconds later, a huge shooting star shot across the sky. It was actually a meteor, like it flamed out in the sky. I went for my after-work run one night around 11 p.m. back in 2010 in my neighborhood. I was 18 and just about out of high school. I was headed home and I felt this weird buzzing electricity in my body. You know that feeling when the hair in the back of your body just stands up and you get cold chills? This weird feeling of fear draped over me. And for some reason I thought I needed to stop to shake it out. I thought maybe I was just starting to feel tired or something. As I stood there getting my bearings straight and removing my headphones, I was caught off guard by some sort of movement in front of me. I turned my eyes and I watched as a green orb about 20 to 25 feet away came up and out of the ground. It was almost like it had been on Earth and just moved up and out of the ground effortlessly. It whirled around for about 5 to 6 seconds, like it was getting a view of the area. I immediately became petrified. I'd never encountered anything otherworldly or supernatural like it in my life. I watched this thing shoot off in some sort of rocket, but faster, like lightning. I don't know how to describe how fast it went, but it shot into some trees a ways off. It was still out there, but there was pulsating light in these trees. I ran home as fast as I humanly could. I walked in the door, my parents said, "You are so flushed. It looks like you've seen a ghost or something." I immediately burst into tears from all the fear that was bottled up. I'll never forget that. I was staying the night at my friend's aunt's house, and I made the mistake of watching my first horror movie, Saw. It took a while to fall asleep, but then I had this terrible nightmare. I was conscious, and then walking around, but felt like I was in a nightmare being hunted. I had my eyes open, and was walking all around the house with this extreme sense of being hunted or impending doom. I've not heard of anyone else having this type of nightmare. From my research, it seems like sleep paralysis without the paralysis part. I was out on my boat with my dad coming back from an island for lunch. There's this lighthouse really far away on a huge rock that sticks out and would ruin ships, and they were getting ready to do some construction on it and to replace the current bulb with solar-powered LED ones to save money. Nobody was out there at this point in time. We were close enough to it that we could see the features of the rock and lighthouse, but also relatively far away. I look to the left of it, and there's this dark black square. I start thinking, I'm so tired, and then ask my dad if he can see that black square. He said, yes. I was super confused and freaked. It was a bright sunny day, and the square was half the size of this already huge lighthouse. I thought to myself, it was surely some scaffolding tarp that had been caught in the wind, but the thing didn't flap and stood perfectly still. It got thinner and thinner, and then poof, vanished. I still have no idea what it was. saw a Mentalist's show tonight. He was blindfolded, and I was picked at random from the crowd via a ball that was thrown around the crowd and happened to land at me. While blindfolded, he asked me to say yes a few times, and then told me what my name was, my job, and that I had recently caused a security alert at work and caused my whole office to evacuate. What do you guys think about, these self-proclaimed mentalists or psychics? Is it just having a good social IQ and making educated guesses based on everything presented to them, or is there something more to it? When I was 19 years old, I had a vivid dream involving my mother and a car crash. I was awoken from the dream at impact by the telephone ringing. It was my father saying, "She's not hurt, but your mother's been in an accident." Yep, car crash. They needed me to come get them. I'm 53 now, and I still don't understand it. I consider myself very skeptical, atheist. Don't believe in ghosts or goblins, magic, any of that. Yet, what is this dream business? Simple coincidence, brain hearing the telephone and manufacturing a coincidental dream in that millisecond before waking up? I wouldn't believe it if I were hearing it from someone else. Please, someone explain. My dad and I were at the grocery store, and we were stopped in a driving lane in front of the store that you turn into the parking lanes from. Cars were stopped in both directions, waiting for other cars to pull in and out and allowing pedestrians to cross. This woman walked behind my dad's truck, and the wind blew her reusable bags out of her hands, and the three of us had a little chuckle about it. She didn't drop them. The wind kicked up and blew them out of her hands. As she leans down to pick them up, traffic clears in the other direction, and a car comes speeding through, too fast for a parking lot. It goes by just as she's about to step out in from behind the truck. If her bags hadn't been knocked out of her hands, that car would have hit her, and she probably would have been badly hurt. I don't know if that was karma, God, the universe, or just a coincidence, but it feels awfully like something was looking out for her. I've got a list, but most of it is a little ghost town we call Rowan Creek up here. Weird shit always happens there, and I was once clawed by an unknown something there. Even weirder, as kids, my cousin and I went, but a white-dressed woman with lovely green eyes and hair so soft that the void itself seemed like a torch told us it was too dangerous for children to be there. When looking back to say bye, she had simply vanished. I heard no steps, and it was an open field all the way to the buildings. The forest was the way she was walking. I'm a major skeptic, but we both saw the same woman, and I know she wasn't human. I really did wish to thank her for steering us clear of danger. I was reminded my second time up there, and I quickly realized she was right. That place is dangerous. My father and oldest brother even refused to go there or even talk about it. I was stargazing with my telescope one night. It's not a powerful scope, just a cheap Meade DS-114. If I recall correctly, I was looking at Saturn around 10 p.m. in the mid-southeastern sky. As I was sighting my scope, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. I looked toward the high southern sky and noticed 2 points of light rapidly moving in circles before breaking off in opposite directions, one going south, the other north, roughly the speed you'd expect to see at a satellite level. I quickly lost the southern one behind a tree, and I tried my damnedest to locate the northern one with my telescope, but it unfortunately escaped out of view in either clouds or in front of my house. It is something I will never forget. I spend days simulating in 3D if perhaps the circling motion was just an illusion born from turning my head toward it. I still have no answer for what I saw, and deep down, I know I watched the circling lights for more than just a moment, and couldn't have been an illusion. Living out in the country, I've seen some stuff, a hairless fox that looked like a chupacabra, but that could be explained. Experts came in and actually deemed it a hairless raccoon thanks to a trank and a DNA test. Perhaps the weirdest was one night I was walking down this gravel road at like 3 a.m. with my girlfriend. We were rather fond of long late-night walks down country roads for whatever old reason. I always packed heat just in case. It was the middle of the summer, so it felt great out. Anyway, we were coming to the end of the loop of the road, the dead-end road. I got that feeling, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, chilled to the bone despite it being 90 degrees in the middle of the night. I kept walking through, and about 3 seconds later it happened. You know that sound that occurs when you swing something through the air? That whoosh sound. It was that, but it was coming up from right behind me. And then it stopped literally what felt like an inch from my head. This all happened in like a time span of 3 seconds. I pivot naturally and turn around quickly, and nothing's there. The sound, I swear, was clear as day, though, for me. My girlfriend heard nothing and felt nothing. She asked what was wrong, and of course I said nothing, which pissed her off. I can only describe it as it sounded and felt like something was coming full force right behind me and stopped suddenly right at the back of my head. We kept walking past the dead-end loop and down to the little lake, which was at the end of the loop, by the way. By this point, I was just starting to calm down from the incident when something else happened, and this time my girlfriend did hear it. The worst, most blood-curdling scream from a woman you can imagine. We both jumped. It was close, but the nearest house was a good 5 miles from where we were. This sounds right across from the lake. She grabbed my arm and begged me to go back to the truck, which was a good 3/4 of a mile up the road. I gladly agreed. I've never heard a scream like that, to be honest. Genuine, sheer terror type of scream. As we turn around and I have my arm around her, I look over my shoulder back at the lake. It wasn't a full moon, but like a half moon, just enough for light to reflect nicely off of it. There was something in the water that was cruising along the shoreline we were just standing at, only its head was above the water. I didn't tell my girlfriend at the time. We waited till we got back to the truck, but I did have her pick up the pace a bit. Needless to say, our late-night walks along country roads were no more after that night. She believed it was a banshee. Nah. I think like swooping sounds and feeling I got where an owl or something that happened to dodge the hell away from my head at the last second, even though I didn't feel any draft. The scream was from a deer, and the head floating towards us in the lake was a beaver. At least that's what I tell myself, but man, I won't ever forget that night. I still go back to that road during the day and do some fishing at this little lake, but only during the daytime. I've never seen anything weird or unexplainable since. At my old house in the country, my brother and I were in the backyard when it was dusk. It was just light enough that when you look around, it looks like you're watching something frame by frame. He was standing next to our crabapple tree, and I was about 70 feet away with another in between us, not a cable app. I said, "Ow," because I got hit on the left temple with an apple. At the same time, my mother screamed, "Ow," because he got hit too, on the left temple. At the same time, in the same place, we got hit by an apple while we were in the 70 feet apart and couldn't see each other. I did not throw an apple at him, and he did not throw an apple at me. When I was younger, my parents, siblings, and I lived in a half house with my great-grandparents. My great-grandpa had passed away a few years prior to this story taking place, by the way. Now, my twin sister and I used to stay at my grandparents' house about 20 miles away. On this particular day or night, we did. My mother came to pick us up the following day and proceeded to tell us that she had been getting ready in the upstairs bathroom when my 4-year-old brother, at the time, came running up to her to tell her there was a man downstairs. My mom was freaking out, thinking he had let some random person into the house. So she goes downstairs and my brother points to the back room we had, which was just never empty since my great-grandfather had passed. It turns out there was no one there. I've never been much of a believer in the afterlife or anything, but I can't explain this. The day my dad died, I sent him a text. He was 50, and this was only a few years ago. "If you're okay, please just tell us something. Just say you're alive. I love you, Daddy." He was away on a business trip and ended up passing by his hotel the day before. I was completely oblivious to the fact because it takes time to tell the family living away. During the day we were notified, my mom got a call that showed up as my dad. His picture, name, number, all of it. I wouldn't have believed she was being honest if I had seen it happen. The caller was my grandparents. Controversy and calling to say hi and see how we were doing and how our dad's trip was going. The night before we were notified of his passing, I had a weird dream. I was running down the street our house was on behind my dad's car, his arm sticking out of the window, and a specific song was playing on the radio. These don't seem significant, but trust me, they are. The car was slow at first, but as he got farther away from the house, he got much faster. I never saw his face as he drove away, but he wanted and waved like he did every time we'd watch him leave for a lap. The dream was the most vivid dream I've ever had. I don't usually give them meanings or reason, but it comforts me to think that this was him saying goodbye one last time. I was really close to my dad, and I felt like it was as close as I'd get to closure. There was this supposedly haunted barracks at Duke Airfield, a satellite base in the Eglin Air Force. I've gone in there more than a few times to use the bathroom, and I can only recall seeing one time I legit thought it was haunted. I saw a woman go in what I'm pretty sure was the men's bathroom from a distance down the hallway. Me having to go and she having to tell her to go to the correct one about 20 feet away so I can be free to do my business, just follows her about 10 seconds later. And she's not in there. All the stalls are open, the windows closed, I can see everywhere, and it's empty. I still don't know about that one. It's possible I just wasn't planning paid leave or paying that much attention and didn't see another door in my single-minded focus to both get to the bathroom and figure out how to tell her she was in the wrong one. Or I miscalculated how far she was and she went in the right direction. Both are possible. Thought, anecdote about if you ever worked on the Duke Airfield gate or around it and hear a ghost story involving the gate. In 2006, while I was on a different post, the Air Force security guys on night shift pranked one of their own people sitting at the gate by rattling a piece of chain while wearing black, their faces covered, and walking very slowly towards the guy at the gate. They freaked him out so hard that he hit the distress alarm and was screaming for backup on his radio. So if you hear about a ghost story now, it's probably the retelling of that prank story at the gate that's combined with the C-130 crash they had at Duke to create a new ghost story. I'm like half skeptic. I really want to believe, but I'm not sure if I actually do. That being said, I'll share something that has confused me for years. Late 2015, 2016, I lived with my dad for a bit, and I shared a room with my stepsister. The way our room was set up was that you walked from the living room into this tiny, maybe 6 foot long hall, and at the very front of it was my bedroom. Then you turned the corner, and the other end of the 6 feet was the bathroom. My stepsister's bed was against the wall deeper in the room, so from her bed you couldn't see into the hall, but my bed was against the wall, so when I was laying down, I was directly facing the door and the hall. We had a blue light in the bathroom, and it was the only light on in the apartment at night. Despite me being terrified of the dark, even at age 19, the blue nightlight was my comfort. So when it was midnight and I couldn't sleep and I started feeling panicky, I would just look into the hallway and stare at the blue light being given off by the nightlight that illuminated a tiny bit of the doorway. One night, I had gone to bed super early, so I woke up around 2 a.m. really thirsty. But I was afraid to get up at first, so I laid in bed and looked toward the hall to see the blue light to calm down before getting up and running to the kitchen. Instead of the blue light illuminating the doorway and a bit of the hall, I saw a black figure standing in the doorway. It took a minute for me to realize it was a figure. At first I thought the light was off, until I realized I could still see illuminating parts of the hallway toward the ceiling, but as it went further down, there was a shape of a person standing there, and I could feel it come staring at me. I got so scared seeing it that I hid under my blanket and texted my best friend in a panic, who of course was asleep at the time. but after about 10 minutes of lying under my blanket, I came back out and could see the light again. I've had a couple experiences, but that was by far the scariest, and I still to this day tell myself it was just a hallucination.